Hello once again, folks. Hey, everybody, this is Kevin with Basement Games. I'm doing a Kevin Explains It All video today. I know I'm a day late, sorry. But people have been asking about Regicide for some time, and I just want to let them know what is Regicide. So Regicide is a game that we came up with, it was over a year or two ago. Basically, this came from the fact that we would play games here at the basement, and it often turned out we would have 5 or 6 players. And we didn't want to necessarily do 2 pods of 3 or a pod of 2 and a pod of 4. So we came up with this game, and it's loosely based on some other games, but we tweaked it quite a bit and made it, I think, a lot more fun. So basically it starts out as, if you've heard of games like Usurper or Kingdoms, there's a lot of different variations. This is ours. And how it starts is everybody grabs their deck. Okay, so you're going to play your regular game of EDH. But here's a caveat. Everyone will also then get a roll card. So we're going to open the Regicide pack. And the roll cards mean everything because the roll cards are your win conditions. And they have special abilities and things of that nature. So let me run you through what the roll cards are. So let's pretend everybody has their deck out. Now, I do recommend, because Regicide itself is the new win condition. So for example, if you normally win by a Labman combo, that doesn't work in Regicide. You have to win based on what the card tells you have to win. And I'll run over all the details of that in just a minute. But just think of it this way. You're not going to necessarily win with the combo you're used to unless it's targeting killing people, because that's kind of how we do it with Regicide. So I'll run over that. There's a bunch of rules and setup and gameplay, but I'm just going to kind of give you the brief details in person right now. So with the Regicide game, every game starts with a king. There's always a king in every game, and I'll run you through why that's important. So a couple things to be aware of. On every one of the cards, there is the name of the card, and then there's also the faction of the card, and this actually becomes very important when you're playing games. And at the very beginning, you will always see you win the game if. On every single card, you win the game if, because that is the win condition for the game. So, with the Royals and the King in particular, you win the game, you vanquish the Usurper role, or if there are no non-Royals and allies left in the game. So what does that exactly mean? Well, you're playing a game of EDH, right? And you're just having a regular good time. You got your board states out, everything's going good. But in the game are all these hidden role cards. Well, all but the King. The King is always revealed, okay? So as the King, you have to kind of out-politic people and guess, are you on my side? Are you not on my side? Have you done things to hurt me? And that's the idea of this game. So as the king, you have to decide, should I kill these people? Should I get other players to kill them? You can win together, you can lose together. Things like that are happening. Hey, Penny, good to see you. Penny's actually one of our earliest adopters of Regicide. He kind of helped us kind of play test the heck out of this, so he's been around for a long time, and he's had some of the most epic wins as the Jester roll card, and I'll run you through what that is in a minute. So the game continues. You vanquish the Usurper role, or there are no non-royals or allies left in the game, you win the game. So what does that mean? So your allies would be the other royals. So your royal, and this is all faction-based, and it's all got the purple royal tag, right? So as long as either these are the only players left, or allies of, and I'll explain how allies work, or if the king in particular kills the usurper role. The game is only $15, and then if you need shipping, it's $3 shipping. So $18 total if you need shipping, or if you buy it here at the store, it's $15. So the king role literally says, if you kill this player, you win. Now, you don't know who this player is until they reveal, and there's a reason why roles will reveal, and I'll get to that in just a minute. So you win the game, and you and your royals all win together if you either kill him, or if he's not in the game, you just kill everybody who's not a royal or allied as a royal, okay? So, again, you're the only player to start with your role revealed. Also, you begin the game if you go first. So in a normal game, let's say 5 players, right? Everybody gets their decks. We deal out the cards. We make sure there's always a king in that randomly dealt out rolls. And this card is the one that is revealed first. We'll say, who is our king? We reveal the king. The king goes first. They start at 50 life. And they have a version. It's not 100% Monarch, but it's like Monarch. Our version is any turn where you took damage from another player, at the end of that turn, you may put a card in your hand from the top of your deck. So it's a pseudo version of Monarch. You can't steal this ability, and it does cost you a little bit of life. But from time to time, it's a good ability to have where, hey, do a little bit of damage to me and I'll draw for that. And as one of the rebels who wants to kill the king, you could pretend you're on his side. Oh, I could hit you, but it's going to cost you 5 life. Would you like to draw? You know, that kind of stuff. Now, there's a couple other abilities on this roll card. There's a Vanquish bonus and a Proclaim. Vanquish bonus is a kill bonus. When you take out a player, you get this ability. So the Vanquish bonus is when you kill a player, double your life. So if you're at 50 life, you can go to 100, etc., etc. So he can become very powerful if he starts downing people. And he has a Proclaim. Yeah, Logan, I agree. With Oathbreaker, with EDH, these are really, really fun. And I've only gotten through the first roll, so let me show you the other rolls too. With the Proclaim ability, most of our Proclaims are based on real Magic the Gathering cards. This one is a version of Teferi's Protection. Literally the same exact wording as Teferi's Protection. Until the next turn, your life can't change, and you have protection from everything. All permanents you control phase out. The exact same wording, with one exception. It's until the end of turn. You don't get this for an entire round. It was way too powerful for the entire round and to know that you had a Teferi's Protection anytime you wanted. So we have it as a once per game ability you can do only till the end of turn. So that's a little thing about it. Now, how does the Proclaim work? The easiest way to think about Proclaim is anytime you could cast a spell. So anytime you gain priority, so instant speed, you can Proclaim. But the Proclaim happens in two steps is the best way to think about it. So let's say you want to Proclaim. Now he's always revealed, but everybody else is hidden. So you would say, I would like to Proclaim my role. So what that now means is you have a Proclaim on the stack. Other people can respond to the stack, but they can't end the turn, they can't counter it. Because this is an outside the game mechanic, it happens no matter what, okay? So you say, I would like to Proclaim. So we allow for people to tap their mana, cast their spells, whatever, but no matter what happens, you will still get to Proclaim your role, okay? Other people can set up their own Proclaims, blah, 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 blah. Now, so once all the stack is cleared and we're back to your original Proclaim, your Proclaim happens. As it happens, it's an uncounterable ability. Think of it as split second. There is no morphing. There is no tapping of mana. It's better than split second. It just happens. Think of it as someone says they'd like to cast Tooth and Nail. If there's no responses and it's not countered, the effect happens and you can't do anything about that. So that's kind of the way to think of a Proclaim ability. So someone says, I'd like to Proclaim. We allow for the stack to get added to. Once it gets back to you, it's all resolved and the Proclaim happens. No matter what, the Proclaim happens. And it's usually a once per game effect. However, there are ways to get additional abilities. So that's more or less the Proclaim. So at any point you can basically say, peace out, I'm out. And your entire board state is phased out. So that allows you some protections when people want to board wipe or they want to alpha strike you or whatever. You have these abilities. You are the king. And as the king, you are the leader of the royals. So as long as you win, all the royals win. Living or dead, all three of these players, if they're in the game, will win the game if you do. Okay? They don't necessarily lose the game if you do, though. And I'll get to that in a minute. All right. Along with the king, you have the royals, the queen, and the guard. And what are these two roles all about? They're more or less all about protecting the kingdom and keeping him alive. Now, remember, these cards are going to seem... there's a lot of things that are similar. Like I said, we borrowed elements from Kingdoms, from Usurper, from Bang, from Sheriff. There's 500 cards, games you could name that have similar abilities like this, and we kind of tried to put it all together in one fun game. So, remember, the rest of these cards always start face down unless they tell you to turn them face up, and I'll get to that in a minute. So, you would have a hidden card right here. And this would be, we'll start with this one. This would be this card right here. Someone's going to alpha strike your king, and you don't want that to happen. You want to protect him. You would say, I'd like to Proclaim my role. We allow for responses to happen. Once it gets back to you, the uncounterable Proclaim happens. So you flip your role. What is your Proclaim? Your Proclaim, literally, it's a fog. It's a fog that you can do anytime you need to. So if you think someone's going to win the game by killing somebody, you can now... well, thanks, Keith. I appreciate that. You can now basically fog the board once this game. And the guard also has additional abilities. So he wins if the king wins. And his creatures can be used as blockers for the king. So let's say the king is getting swamped by 5 attackers and you want to help prevent that damage. You can assign your creatures as blockers to help the king. So you have a fog, you have blocking control. The guard is the best friend of the king. Fog on a stick, exactly. You only get to use it once, but very, very important. So that's the king and the guard. Now we're going to move on to the queen role. The queen is a little more dynamic, and she's a little manipulative, has some fun here. So she wins if the king wins. Very easy, right? The vanquish bonus. When you vanquish a player, repeat the proclaim ability. This is important because this is where things get a little chaotic. So if you kill a player, okay, you get to repeat the proclaim. So remember, all the cards are face down. You proclaim. If you kill a player, you get to do it again. All right? You basically, it just happens. It's not that you're going to flip your card back down. You just do it again. It's an auto effect. You kill a player, boom, you do it again. All right. What is the proclaim and why is this fun? The proclaim here is any player of your choice becomes a royal for their next 5 turns. Now, I haven't explained all the other factions yet, but that is very, very important. Remember, the royals all win when the king does, right? So if you convert a player, you now have another royal in the game to beat everybody else for 5 turns, and you could actually end the game and have everybody win as royals. Let's see. As the guard, I killed the king. Next to the turn, assassin was gone. Yeah. All right, so now you may ask, well, what if you don't know what that person is because their role is not revealed? That's okay. For 5 turns, you have converted them. Their win condition is the only thing that has changed. You win the game if. Every other ability on that card, here, I'll just show you another card. Here's well, let me do an easy one, an assassin. Every other ability is the same. So, for example, I convert this player, all right? This player is now a royal. He doesn't have to reveal if he's not revealed. But for 5 turns, his win condition is now he wins if the king wins. So if he thinks he can kill the other players that are left and win the game, it's advantage to try to be on the king's side. If you think you can beat the clock, then you try to beat the clock and not have the king and the royals win and under those 5 turns. So it's kind of up to you how you want to play it. Yeah. So let's get on to now the faction that wants to down the royals. These are known as the rebels. There are up to 4 in any game, and there can be more because there's cards that actually make more. So there's up to 2 assassins, all right? And the assassins are very straightforward. They win the game if a rebel, which is you guys, remember the rebel tag, kills the king. It's that simple. If any of these roles kills the king in any of their ways that they're allowed to kill it, just kill the king. You win. That simple. Kill the king and win. All of you win together, okay? Now, the assassin has probably, I think, the most direct way to do it because the assassin is just going to chill there and be good. But if there's a real problem on the board, they would announce, I'd like to proclaim my role. We allow for all this stuff to happen. You show no responses, right? No responses at all. Proclaim. For each revealed assassin, choose a permanent and exile it. What does that mean, really? You are better than split second exiling any chosen permanent. Anything on the board, except for, I guess like the things that planeswalkers make, because there's no way to choose those. But any chosen oh, actually, you know what? I never had that deal with that. That may be something we can target. It gets past hexproof, it gets past shroud, it gets past protection from colors. Everything. As long as it's on the board, it can be exiled from existence. And then, if it's a commander, obviously you can put in your command zone, blah, blah, blah. But why is this also important? For each revealed assassin. So the first one proclaims he can choose 1 permanent, and because it's chosen, not targeted, you get past hexproof and shroud. If another assassin is in the game and they reveal themselves, that player gets 2 chosen permanents. So 2 assassins can wreck face on whoever they want to. And they have a vanquish bonus. The vanquish bonus says, whenever you kill a player, vanquish a player, if your role is revealed, so the role must already be revealed to get this ability, you may choose a permanent and exile it. So in other words, you kill a player, you get to get another permanent gone from the game. Think of how many times win cons are going off, combos are going off, people are aggroing, and you get to split second exile a permanent. That changes the entire game. So very, very fun role. I love the assassins. They're straightforward. They're gangster like that. So let's move on to the traitor. Remember when I was talking about the queen? Okay, the queen can convert anyone into a royal. All right, that's what her ability is. The traitor can convert anybody to a rebel. Proclaim, I want to make another bad guy. Hell, I want to make the queen a bad guy. And yes, let's say, and we can do this, and we've had games like this, the queen converts an assassin, okay? And now the assassin is a royal. And then the traitor goes, F you, you're back with us, buddy. It's that simple. You get to do it, and it's still the same 5 turns. And if you kill a player, you get to do it again. So there is a way to get multiple royals and a way to add multiple rebels to a game, making for a very fun dynamic. Sorry, Keith is adding, as a rogue alchemist, I made a no-winner game. I killed the king while partnered with the patriarch, then the yeah. All right, so I'm going to get to some of the more interesting things that can go off on these kinds of decks. Yes. All right, so these two are basically yin and yang, and there's another card combo that does the yin and yang situation as well, but that one's the rebel, one's the royal. They're more or less yin and yang of the same thing. The final rebel is the usurper. Now remember, if this guy's in the game and the king directly kills him, it's over. The king and all the royals win. So the king, only if the king kills him, by the way. If anybody else kills the usurper, nothing happens. It's just a guy dead, and then whatever triggers go on. But if the king specifically kills the usurper, the game is over. Same if the usurper kills the king. The game is over. The rebels win. All right? Only the rebels, the yellow titled rebels, may kill the king directly right off the bat. Any other role, such as the rogues I'm about to introduce, they have to they can't immediately attack the king, and I will explain how that works in a minute. But the war is really between the royals and the rebels, and the rogues are side faction. They're other things, okay? So these are the only ones that can really kill each other, and I'll explain more about that in a second. So the usurper has some additional abilities. Of course, you win the game if you kill the king. If revealed, all creatures and spells you control gain sickness. What the hell is sickness? Sickness is our version of infect, but it's better. All of your creatures and all of your spells gain it. But because that's very, very overpowered, we made it 20 counters. So they get, as opposed to infect counters, which infect is still in the game, that's fine, we added sickness counters, and all of your creatures have it. So if you're a swarm deck, or if you have huge creatures, they all get it as long as they're attacking the king. If they attack any other player, they're just regular damage. But when they attack the king in particular, they gain sickness. All of yours do. Okay, so they don't do regular damage. They do damage in the form of sickness counters. 20 counters kills the king. All right? Now his Proclaim is the most fun to do, and people who do this on turn 1 are lunatics, but I love them for it. Proclaim. Look at your graveyard, hand, or library, choose a creature, put it into play, shuffle your library. It is a single tooth and nail that can hit your library, your hand, or your graveyard and put it immediately into play, and you get to do it at any time you want to. Any creature. Malignus, anyone? Yeah. Super, super crazy fun. And that is basically the usurper right there. Okay, so those are your rebels and royals. Now we get to what I think is the real fun of this game and adds a lot of different combinations and variety. And I'm going to start with my favorite rogue, the Jester. So remember, all these role cards are hidden until you reveal them. Most of them will get revealed because they have a Proclaim ability. There are some that get revealed because there's a static ability that says you reveal blank, win. All right? There are 13 total cards. Only one of them is duplicated, which is the Assassin. So 12 unique cards, 13 total cards. Thank you for the question, Logan. Now remember, and also, you can do this however you want. I typically start a game, let's say we have a 5, 6, up to 7 player game. I mean, we've had 10 player games before, and 10 player games can end in an hour. It's crazy. The only thing that slows 10 player games down is people's turns. But the game state itself really gets ramped up, especially when you add the rogue cards. So I would call the rogue cards even maybe advanced level, where the battle between the royals and the rebels, very simple, very straightforward. Kill each other, win. Extra abilities added. Once you add the rogues into the mix, it gets a lot more complicated and I think a lot more fun. All right, so the first one, my favorite rogue, I absolutely love this. I wanted to try to create a player that won not by necessarily killing other people, but by dying. And that's where this came from. Here's the Jester. The Jester states, if you would be the first player vanquished this game, remember Vanquish is killed, by sources you don't control, you win the game. Think of it this way. Somebody alpha strikes you, nobody else is killed at the table, you go, oh, I'm dead. And they go, ha ha ha. On your death, you reveal your role, you have won the game. Everybody else loses. It's that simple. And yes, if Penny's still watching, he's played that bullshit on me several times, and it's really fun because he basically just antagonizes me and I take him out. But what's even more fun than that is the threat of a jester. A lot of times people will be downing other players, but not knowing their role card, and they can pretend like they're the jester, saves them. So there's more to this card than just that. They have a vanquish bonus. The vanquish bonus, again, if you kill a player. Vanquish any non-king player, and that's key, non-king, because you can't actually kill a king as a rogue, at least not right away. Add 30 life to your life total. And you're thinking to yourself, if the whole point of the game is to reducing your life and being killed right away, why would you want to do that? Well, by the time you kill another player, you're going to lose your first win con anyway, because the first win con is if you're the first player to be killed, you win the game. So if you end up killing another player, obviously the game state is out of place, so you're not going to win that way. And does that mean that you can't win at all? No, we added a secondary win condition. Proclaim. Prevent all combat damage this turn, gain life equal to the damage prevented this turn. So this is basically a fog on a stick. So the fog is, you can fog and you gain life based on that alpha strike. So if they're going to attack the king for the win with 60 life, you gain that. And what is the secondary win con? Remember, you can win by either being the first player killed, or we basically made a Feldar Sovereign on a player. But it's not 40 life. Feldar Sovereign reads, if you have 40 more life on your upkeep and this creature's in play, you win the game. This one is, if you are not the first player vanquished, so another player must be killed, and begin your turn with 100 life, win the game. So basically, if you can't win being the first player downed, your vanquish bonus and your proclaim both help you gain life to get back up to 100 to try to win the second way. Okay, so that's the jester. Yeah, Keith, 100% right with that. If you are an aggro player, this is your favorite role. Just piss everybody off and keep doing it, and they'll eventually try to kill you, and you could win the game that simply. It's so much fun. I really, really love this role, and this to me is what the rogues are all about. Just playing shit that throws everything up in the air and changes the rules of Magic. Let's move on to another one, the Patriarch. The Patriarch has gone through a lot of changes in this game, and this is the final version, and I really enjoy where it came from. But originally, it was an immortal card. It couldn't be killed. The player who owned the Patriarch couldn't die. It was really dumb. I tried to do a game based off of the idea of a divine intervention where you win if it's a tie. It was really dumb. We've simplified it quite a bit now. Okay, so here is the Patriarch. The Patriarch says, you win the game if you're the last player still alive. Well, that's easy, right? No problem there. Let's continue. If revealed, at the beginning of your turn, if you destroyed all lands, each player may return a land card from their graveyard to the battlefield. This does not count your land for the turn. So why would you want... this is based on... There's a green enchantment that has like 3 abilities on it, and basically it says return a land from your graveyard. Each player does this, return a land from your graveyard, and then on the last one, I think it blows up all lands. Yeah, it's a white enchantment. It blows up all lands, and then for 2 turns, it returns, I think, 1 or 2 lands from the graveyard to the battlefield. So we really liked that, and we threw it into this because his Proclaim is one of 2. Destroy all lands, Armageddon, or exile all non-land permanents. Think of how powerful that is. Basically, at any time you want to, combat, whenever you would gain the ability to cast an instant, so anytime you gain priority, someone feels like they're going to be OP, they're going to win the game, you get to say, I'd like to proclaim, allow for all the responses to resolve, and then you reveal your role. No one could do a damn thing about it. You either Armageddon or you exile all non-land permanents. Super, super value. You basically build the board state that you want. Now, because we didn't want to slow the game to a standstill, we gave him the, now that it's revealed, if cards or lands are in the graveyard, each player on your turn gets to return a land from the graveyard. So that way we don't bring the game to a standstill, because the idea of Regicide is long or large pods of games, 5, 6, 7, up to 10 players, in around an hour. So we didn't want to bring the game to a complete crash. That's why we did that. And then, of course, Vanquish bonus. This one is where this card gets ridiculous. Kill a player, take another turn. So if you are in a commanding position where you can just start downing people, you do, and you win the game. Remember, you win the game if you're the last player alive. Now, something to be aware of, this is a sub-rule that exists in this game. Anybody who is not a rebel, okay? Anybody who is not a rebel cannot kill the king, okay? Remember who the king is. unless they are the last 2 players alive. You always know who the king is, right? You can hurt the king, you can damage the king, you cannot do lethal damage or cause a lose con, if you will, to the king unless you were the last 2 players alive. If you do that, the king dies, you die, you're both out of the game, and we now go to a faction war. And the faction war is rogues versus rebels versus royals, whoever's left. So in general, you do not want to kill the king unless you are a rebel and unless you are the last 2 players left. And that is your final win con. Every role has the ability, we call it last man standing, and it's basically if you can't win the game based on the win con of your card, let's say you're a jester and you're like, man, I can do this a lot faster, I'll just start killing people. That's totally legit. You can combo off, storm off, and just kill people. Just be aware, you have to kill the king last, otherwise you will die as a consequence. So be aware that it's a little, like I said, the whole point of this game is to switch up people's win conditions. All right, so moving on to Patriarch. We have the pirate role. Pirate, what does a pirate like to do? Pirate likes to steal stuff. A buccaneer, right? So it reads, you win the game if, at the beginning of your turn, you control 10 or more permanents owned by other players. This is probably the hardest role to win with, but the most fun you're going to have in a game. Because here's what typically will happen with this role card. Because what the Proclaim is, I'm going to read it. Let's say it's turn 4 or 5. People have their soul rings out, they have some early creatures, they got some early game advantage. You say, I would like to proclaim my role. And you can do this anytime you want. We allow for responses, you proclaim. What happens? At the bottom. Take control of a non-land permanent from each other player. Think about that for a second. I'll grab your soul ring, your mana crypt, your mana dork, and your commander. Boom, they're all mine. I have 5 or 6 permanents. First of all, you win if you have 10 permanents stolen from other players, okay? On your turn, at the beginning of your turn, you win the game. So right off the bat, you're halfway there. So you're also the enemy of every player because you've now pissed off the entire board. That's where it gets tricky. But you're also in a commanding position because you have all their mana and all their fixings. Now, how do you keep getting to this point where you can keep stealing stuff? You duel. At the beginning of your turn. Now I'm going to explain the at the beginning of your turn in just a second because we added an extra phase into Regicide. So of course we all know on the beginning of your turn in Magic, there's untap, upkeep, draw, main phase, combat, etc., right? We added an extra turn that happens before untap, and there's several reasons why. Stealing stuff mostly and getting effects. Our beginning of the turn is before untap. Okay, so you do the before, or at the beginning of the turn, you do this first. Then you untap, then you go to upkeep, and that's in the game of Regicide, and it's in the rules guide. So just kind of it doesn't always play a key feature, but every once in a while it's important, and that's why it's there. So at the beginning of your turn, so this happens before untap. Beginning of each of your turns, choose a player. You and that player both reveal the top card of your libraries. So let's say they choose me, and this is them, okay? So this is us right here. And we reveal, okay? And it says the conditions. Both players, reveal the top card of your libraries. If both cards are lands, both players put the lands into play. So if both cards were lands, boom, land goes into play for me, goes into play for you. If both cards revealed are non-land permanents, the pirate gets them, okay? So if both are either lands, both of us get that option. If both are non-land permanents, the pirate gets one. Guess what? Now the pirate has stolen another permanent, and it just comes into play. There's no cast, nothing like that, right? Finally, if neither of these conditions is met, both of you just draw, and that's what our version of duel is. So it can either ramp both players, it can help this guy fill a win condition, or it'll draw for both of you. So it's a fun little mechanic that speeds the game up. And that's more or less the idea behind most of these roles. How do you get 7, 8, 10 players playing a game in under an hour? You speed the game up with fun mechanics like this. So that's the pirate role. Very hard role to win, very advanced role, but super fun and changes games. A lot of fun to play. Okay, I'm going to do the last 3. All right, the Vizier. The Vizier is a charlatan. The Vizier basically says, I'm going to stay on the sidelines until I want to. If I decide there's a time when I can win, I'm going to make a choice. So here's how this works. Remember, this role is hidden. You reveal. You win the game if your chosen faction wins, or reveal of roll card, you must declare yourself a royal or rebel. Oh, I'm sorry, I read that incorrectly. You win the game if your chosen faction wins, period. Now, you're a rogue, so is your chosen faction rogue? We continue. On reveal of roll, so when you reveal for the first time, when you've proclaimed, you must declare yourself a royal or a rebel. Once you do, you are that faction. So at any time you want to, you may proclaim, and when you do, you are revealing the role, and you choose. You are no longer a rogue. You are either a royal or you are a rebel. And you get to see which side of the battle you want to be on. And that is your new faction, unless you are changed by the queen. That is your faction, okay? So, now you have some more abilities. When you proclaim, you get to half the life of any player. So if you decide that you want to be a rebel and you want to kill the king, well, probably a good idea to half the life of the king. If you feel like, well, maybe I could win as the other side and be the royals, you can half the life of any player you decide you want to, okay? And if it's revealed, so once you proclaim it, of course, it is revealed. That's the if it's revealed mechanic. At the beginning of your turn, choose a player. That player's creatures deal double damage until the next turn. So not only do you choose the rebels or the royals, you are a huge boost, support boost to any player on your faction. You can choose yourself. Maybe you're the one with all the creatures. You can choose the rebels, and maybe one of the players there has all the creatures. But all the creatures do double strike damage basically until end of turn. It's huge, huge value. This guy is a game changer when he decides. 2 more roles, and these are some of the most provocative roles. These roles, people love them and hate them all at the same time. And I'm going to start with the yin and the yang. Alchemist. These are 2 that do not have proclaims, by the way. Okay, so they kind of break the mold a little bit. And as opposed to a proclaim, they will tell you at the beginning of your turn. Okay, so here's how this works. You win the game if your chosen ally wins the game. At the beginning of your first turn, reveal your role. So you do not get a proclaim, but on your very first turn, you reveal your role. And this is at the beginning of your turn, so this happens before untap, upkeep, whatever, right? So at the beginning of your very first turn, you reveal your role. Then you randomly choose a non-king player. They are your ally. You win if they do and lose if they do. So how this works. Let's say there's 6 players, not including the king. You randomly choose a player and you get this player. You don't know what they are. You can guess. You can talk to them out loud. You don't get to see their role card, okay? But you can have a conversation like, do you think it's a good idea to attack the king? And this politics plays out in real time, right? Now, what happens as well? Once you have chosen, and at the beginning of every one of your turns, you're also going to roll a d20. So this is at the beginning of your turn before upkeep or untap and upkeep, okay? You're going to roll a d20, and one effect will happen. So if the number is even, so on a d20, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, etc., you and your ally, whoever you are allied with, gets to draw a card. And that doesn't count as the draw for the turn. That's just an extra advantage. If it's odd, one of these effects will happen. 19, destroy everyone else's artifacts. Everyone else being you and your friend, your ally, are protected. Everyone else destroyed. Okay? Same here. If you roll a 17, everyone else's enchantments, planeswalkers, creatures. Number 11, creatures deal double damage until your next turn. So that, again, that's your creatures and your allies' creatures. They both do double damage till end of turn. Double both players' lives. Make a token for both players of any permanent. These are all effects that help you and that player. Search library for land, put into play, shuffle graveyards into library. And then finally, the number 1, randomly roll a new ally. So this only happens to you if you roll a 1, you roll a new ally. And it could be the same guy, or it could be somebody totally different, and now you're on their side and the win con is the same. So what exactly does that mean? They win if you win. So let's say this guy reveals and you know that you are allied with the assassins. You are not an assassin yourself. You are not a rebel. So you cannot kill the king legally unless you are the last player alive, which that would probably mean that you died because your friend died, okay? But it does mean if he wins, you win. So you're going to support this player as much as possible. His goal is to kill the king, so you're going to try to do everything you can to mess with the king and the royals to help the rebels win. Now remember, if you roll a 1, you get a brand new friend and things change. Now, some of the advanced tech is, if this player's ally dies, this player dies. So let's go back to this initial thing. Let's say this is your ally. If somebody or several people decide to target this player and kill him, and this guy dies, you've died too, because you couldn't protect your friend. Okay? So that's kind of some of the fun little symmetry that's going on with the Alchemist, which is the ally role. Basically, you find a friend, you protect your friend, you support your friend, you make friends with your friend. And if you lose your friend, you die. Okay? Now let's flip the script. The Nemesis. Just like the Queen has a reverse role, that's the exact same thing except for the Rebels, the Nemesis is the yin to the yang of the Alchemist. And this is probably one of the most, I don't want to say hated, but this card causes a lot of grief for people. All right? Because it makes you be an enemy. This makes you be a friend. People like being friends. This makes you be a heel to somebody. All right. So, how do you win? You vanquish your chosen foe. At the beginning of your first turn, reveal your role. Again, no proclaim ability. You just reveal your role on your first turn. Randomly choose a non-king player. Exact same thing as the Alchemist. However, that player is the foe. As opposed to having an ally, this is now the foe. And you win the game if you vanquish that player, and you lose if someone else does. So unlike the Alchemist, where they die if their friend dies, okay? Now, the Nemesis, if he kills him, he wins the game. If somebody else kills him, he loses the game. Pretty cool, huh? So let's see what other abilities we have here. On each of your turn and the turn revealed, you'll roll a d20, okay? And if it's even, you do 2 damage to your chosen foe. That adds up. So unlike when you draw cards, now you're doing 2 damage to the chosen foe. We played around with like making the mill and stuff like that, but sometimes that actually is very advantageous, so just doing 2 damage was pretty solid. Now we go into the abilities when they're not even. Number 19. Foe discards 2 cards of their choice. 17. Foe's life becomes 10. Yeah, I just sorned you. 15. For land, foe's land is destroyed of their choice. So you just pick one and you destroy it. 13. Foe sacks a creature of their choice. 11. Foe creatures do not untap on their next turn. You just lock down their creatures. 9. Foe puts top 3 cards from their library into the graveyard. 7. Chooses any permanent they own in play and they exile it. 5. Spells cost 2 more to cast until your next turn for the foe only. 3. Exiles their graveyard. 1. You re-roll. So the same idea with the Alchemist, you can re-roll a new foe. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, oh my god, you just down one player and they never have a chance to win. Here's the problem with that thinking. Let's say you've done 20 points of damage to this player and you're getting him really weak. You've wiped his board. He's an easy target. Well, he's an easy target for everyone. And if you get him so low that anyone can kill him, anyone will kill him, and then you'll lose too. So some point in the game, you have to balance between doing damage and making sure no one else does the damage, or else you'll die. So, very fun mechanics, very fun. This was kind of an introduction to the roles of Regicide. As I mentioned earlier, we do sell them here at the shop for $15. You can find them on Amazon. They're a little more like $20. Or you can actually just get them us directly. If you need shipping, they're $18 because I have $3 in shipping. So, there's a bunch of different places to go. Regicidethegame.com. It also has them up on that website. But yeah, that's more or less the roles of Regicide. Very fun game. It's a way to basically make multiple winners in a game of EDH and to try things that are a little more on the casual side. You know, you're not going to be playing CDH games with this, but you can definitely be having some fun, casual, janky, good times. And most importantly, this scales very, very well. You know, 3 players, you're not going to have the most fun in this format. 4, okay, but still, you actually want to have, I say on average, if you have 5 to 8 players, that's the sweet spot. That's when you get to see the most rolls, the turns don't take too long, there's a lot of interaction, and there's just a lot of fun. So I recommend in the 5 to 8 is kind of the sweet spot of how you want to be playing this game. Again, the Royals are going to be, Royals and Rebels are kind of the basic cards, and the Rogues add a very advanced level to gameplay and interaction. So play it as you will. Hopefully you had a lot of fun with this description video of what exactly is Regicide. It's a game that we have practiced and played and sent around, and have game stores all over the country playing it. So yeah, thank you very much for the questions and for the back and forth. This was a lot of fun because I enjoy getting to talk about this. So and we play it here as well, here at the basement. So we will likely be starting up a Regicide League sometime either this month or next month for Saturdays. So I'll keep some more information about how that all works. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great day, everybody. Take care. Be safe. I'll come back to you on Saturday with our previews for the raffle. All right, take care.